Don't know who this is for. Maybe someone's going to come across this online and this is what you need to hear. I don't know, but here we go. I've titled it, Where is Your Focus? So in our life, we encounter situations, circumstances, challenges, right? It happens every day. Sometimes it's, a long time before anything big comes up. But in those moments, where our focus is will determine where we go from there, right? If we have a relationship with God and our focus is on Him during those circumstances, things may not turn out like you thought, but they'll turn out better than they would have if your focus had been on the situation instead of on Him. So let's go to Numbers 13, and we're gonna look at verses 1 through 3. Man, I didn't have nerves until about 5 minutes ago. All right. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men. Well, I'll give you a little backstory. So right here, they've come out of Egypt, and they're just outside the promised land. They're ready to go take the land, right? So God says to Moses, Send men that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers ye shall send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses, by the commandment of the Lord, sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All those men were heads of the children of Israel. So he puts together this group of guys and tells them to go scope out the land, okay? So here they are. They're close to the promised land. Think about all the things that God has done for them up to this point. He brought them out of the land of where they were in slavery, parted the Red Sea, and made a way for them to get through. Completely destroyed the Egyptian army. He miraculously provided them with food in the wilderness through manna and quail. And in a time where they had no water, he gave them water from a rock. Right? Pretty big deal to have these kind of things happen. But how many times do we have God provide things for us, and then in the moment when our next circumstance hits, we forget about that and we're just thinking about what's before us, right? So Moses assembles a team of 12 men to go scope out the land, and then he gives them very clear instructions as to what they're supposed to look for. Verses 17 through 20 of the same chapter. And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and he said unto them, Get ye up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwell therein, whether they are strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it is good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds. And what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not, and be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of land, because it was the time of the first grapes. Very clear instructions what to look for, scope it out, get all this information, and bring it back to us. In verses 25 through 29, we see, after scoping out the land, they get their report. They come back and they report back to Moses and the group. They return from searching of the land after 40 days. Seems like a good amount of time to scope it out and get a good feel for what's there. After 40 days, and they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Haran, to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. Just a little side note here, if we look up a little farther in here, it kind of gives you, it tells us what the fruit was like. They cut off one cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a stick between two guys. you ever seen a cluster of grapes that big? No. So it gives you an indication of what the land was like that they were getting ready to go into. All right, lost my place. They said unto him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sent us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and that this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. So they give the report back, and it says, yeah, the land is everything that we were told it was going to be. Everything. It's great. It's amazing. But the people that are there, the city, the walls, all these things, they very quickly took their eye off what God had told them. They find out that the land is everything that he gave them indications that it was going to be, but all of a sudden their focus is on the challenges that are going to be. Right? They took their eye off of what God told them. But Caleb speaks up. Caleb was one of the guys that was there, and he speaks up. He had faith. He had his focus in the right place. And basically, he's like, let's do this. Let's go. We've got it. You know, God is with us. This is what he told us we're going to, let's go get it. You know, what are we waiting for? Verses 31 through 33. But the men that went with him said, We be not able to go against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we had gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants therein. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants and the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so were we in their sight. How many times it sounds like they made more of it than what it really was. All the men are of great stature. Well, maybe not everybody, right? But how many times when we encounter a situation, a circumstance, or a challenge, do we make more out of it than what it really is? Whether it's to convince ourselves that we can't do it, or if it's to convince those around us that they know that we're facing this. Well, you make more of it so that they realize, well, yeah, you really couldn't have done it anyway, so don't worry about it. And I feel like we probably do that more times than not. So because of the report of these men, the whole community rebelled. They grumbled, they complained. And if you read farther on, they even talked about choosing a new leader and going back to Egypt. God has brought you this far. He's provided miraculously so many times all along the way, and you're ready to throw it all away and go back to slavery just because you don't want to take on the next challenge. They were within a short distance of the land that God promised. And they're ready to throw it all away because they listened to the wrong people. They took their focus off of God and his power and his promises and put it onto the situation. Let's go to chapter 14, verses 11 and 12. And I did add some later, so we're going to have a few that are not in there. Verses 11 and 12 of chapter 14. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, How long will this people provoke me? And how long will it be ere they believe me? For all the signs which I have shown among them, I will smite them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and will make of thee a greater nation, mightier than they. Again, here they are. They're right outside of where the promised land. And they've made such a fuss all along the way that God's done with them. He's like, I'm ready to just start over. But Moses, having faith, knowing what God can do, what God has done already, he goes before God and pleads with him. We're going to read 13 through 19. Those are not on yours. Moses said unto the Lord, Then the Egyptians shall hear of it, for thou hast brought the people thy might from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, for they have heard that thou, Lord, art among this people, that thou, Lord, art seen face to face, and that thy cloud standeth over them, and that thou goest before them by day in a pillar of cloud and in a pillar of fire by night. Now, if thou shalt kill all this people as one man, then the nations which have heard the fame of thee will speak, saying, Because the Lord was not able to bring this people into the land which he sware unto them, therefore he hath slain them in the wilderness. Now I beseech thee, let the power of my Lord be great, according as thou hast spoken. Saying, The Lord is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of thy mercy, as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. So Moses stepped up and went to bat for him and said, Lord, please don't. Please don't wipe them out. Forgive them, give them another chance. Verses 20 through 33, we see God's response. And the Lord said, I have pardoned according to thy word. But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Because all of these men which have seen my glory and all my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice, surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto them, unto their fathers. Neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, and hath followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereunto he went, and his seed shall possess it. It's a big deal. They listened to the wrong people, and now look at the result. They grumbled and complained, and they doubted God that he would bring them into the land that he told them. And now they will never see it. I'm going to skip down to 30. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, them I will bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. So because of their lack of faith and because of their grumbling, they're complaining, and they're just doubting God, now they have to wander around in the desert 1 year for each day that they scouted out the land. I don't know if that strikes any of you the way it struck me so hard when I read that. Just not only do they not get to see the land, but now their children, who didn't really have a say in the matter, look what they have to deal with because of it. Let's look at one other person and their response in the situation that they faced. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 17. And we're going to look at a decent amount of scripture, but it's all God's word, so it's good. Verses 17 to 23. So the Israelites are now they're at war with the Philistines. They've drawn their battle lines. They're encamped out. They're ready. Jesse says unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. Carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their thousands, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. So David's job here is he's not of age to be at war, so he's back tending to the family's flock, the family's sheep. But his dad sends him to go check on them, see how they're doing, see how your brother's doing. Just follow up and check up on them. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, the army against army. David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. Verse 23. And they said unto him, Behold, as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words as David heard them. And David heard them. Wow, stumbling. So when he goes to check on his brothers, as he gets there, and if you read the whole story, you'll kind of get the whole picture of it here. He gets there to check on his brothers, and then that's right about the time of the day when Goliath comes out and, does his rant against them. And at that moment, we see the response of the army. If you look at verse 24, the response of the army was, And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid. What were they afraid of? They are the army of God, children of, What are they afraid of? Well, if you look at verse 4 through 7, it gives us a pretty good indication of what they were dealing with here. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. That's about 9.5 feet. That's a pretty big guy. He had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. I looked it up. It's around 125 pounds. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And the spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. It's approximately 15 pounds. So let's get an idea what they're up against here. 9.5 foot guy with 125 pounds of armor, a gigantic spear, plus any other, armor that he had, any weapons that he had. But then there's this one piece that I've always missed every time I've read this before. And every time I've ever heard someone speak on this topic, I've never heard him bring this part up. What was the other thing that he had? And one bearing a shield went before him. Not only was this guy completely decked out and dressed for a battle, but he had another person walking in front of him carrying a shield. Just keep that in the back of your mind for a moment. So here's David. He's likely in his mid to late teens, possibly. He's just dressed wearing his normal everyday clothes like he would if he was out tending the flock. He's not dressed for battle. He doesn't have weapons for battle. He just has a staff and a sling. Goliath, on the other hand, is a trained man of war armed for battle. That could be a pretty daunting task to think about. But what was David's response? Verse 26. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine? And taketh away the reproach from Israel. Sorry. My eyes are getting... For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Again, not a big guy, not trained for battle, looking at this giant wall of a man and saying, what are you going to do about this? What are we going to do about it? Yeah, what's the big deal? His brothers, if you read on, his brothers get upset with him. For one, what are you doing here? You should be home taking care of the flock. Are you here to mock us? Are you here to make fun of us? And don't even get any ideas because you can't do this. Don't even think about it. Right? So with much discussion, and then it turns out now he's got to go talk to Saul. They send him to go talk to Saul. I just love verse 32. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail him, because thy servant will go and fight this Philistine. Sorry, I'm starting to get emotional. Don't worry about it. Don't let anybody, I'll go take care of this. The whole Israelite army is running in fear of him. And David is like, I got this. I'll go take care of it. You just guys just go have a seat, chill out. I got it. (33 through 37), they're not in there. I added those after. Saul says to David, Thou art not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. So Saul's looking down on him because he's just a youngin'. He's just a boy. He's not only doubting David, but I feel like he's also doubting God. Because just because he's a boy doesn't mean that God can't use him. Let that be true in our lives too. Just because those around us may think that whatever it is that God is calling us to, you can't do that, you're not capable. You're not this, you're not that. If God has put it in you, He'll give you what you need. So don't let those around you discourage you from doing what God has told you to do, if you know for a fact that it's God telling you to do it. get back to this. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by the beard, and smote him, and slew him. It's like, don't worry about this guy. I've killed a bear with my bare hands, right? I've killed a lion with my hands. Don't worry about it. God's got this. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defiled the armies of the living God. So he convinces Saul, after lots of discussion and everything, he convinces Saul to let him go and do this. Probably Saul's thinking, fine, go, but in his back of his mind, he's probably thinking, this is not going to turn out well, but whatever. If you want to do it, go. Verses 41 through 47. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bore the shield went before him. There's that guy again. Don't forget him. I lost my place. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staffs? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. And it just gets better from here. I love this next part. And David said to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee and take thy head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, to the beasts, wild beasts of the earth, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to kill you. He said, God is going to give you into my hands and all of your friends. For what reason? So that people around will know that there is a God in Israel. He's not going to do this for selfish motives. He's not going to do this to get people looking at him. He's going out there to take on this Philistine, to promote God, to show God's power, to show God's what he can do. And all this assembly, verse 47, shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword or spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And I'm actually almost done. So Goliath was counting on his years of experience, his armor, his weapons, and his armor bearer that was in front of him. David, on the other hand, did not have the years of experience or any of the weapons that Goliath had. He was not dressed in armor. He did not have all the gear. But David also knew that the sling, the stones, and the staff that he carried were not the only weapons that he had. He knew that he had God on his side. And the power that he had access to through him. The children of Israel were continually grumbling and complaining. I can't see. grumbling and complaining, and doubting God and his plan and promises. They were constantly focused on the challenges along the way instead of on God and his faithfulness. David, he had built up his faith and trust in God while tending for the family's sheep. It seems like such a meaningless job when you think about all the other things that were going on. And they were even, shepherds were a lot of times even looked down on because, oh, you're just a shepherd. But it was in those moments with the flock that David had moments with God that built his faith, that built his trust, and his confidence in what God could do. He knew that Goliath was nothing for God to handle. So for us, I'm going to ask, what are you focused on? Where is your focus? Are you focused on the challenges that are before you? The circumstance? The giant that it seems like is in front of you? Is that where your focus lies? Is that what you're thinking of all the time? Or are you focusing on the power and promises of God? Are you going to charge toward your giant, toward your circumstance, like David, in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies? Or are you going to run away in fear, like the whole Israelite army did? Are you going to doubt God's ability? Are you going to doubt his promises and his power? Are you going to doubt what he has called you to, like the Israelites did outside of the promised land? Or are you going to charge after what he's told you is yours? You may say, you don't know what I'm facing. You don't know what's before me. You're absolutely right, I probably don't. But what I do know is if you have a relationship with God, if you have a trust in God, it doesn't matter what you're facing. He will walk through with you. It may not turn out the way you think it will or the way you want it to. But in the end, it'll turn out the way it needs to for him to do what he wants to do in you. And sometimes the circumstances that we face, the challenge that we go through, they're not always for us. Sometimes they're for the benefit of those around us. Like, well, what do you mean? Well, seeing how you handle circumstances that are challenging, that are difficult, sometimes that has a bigger effect on the lives of those around you than what you think it does for yourself. I think sometimes that's why we go through things, is for the benefit of those around us. So do you trust God? Do you trust in him and in his promises? Do you trust that what he has called you to, he'll bring you to? Has he ever let you down before? Have you ever faced something and when you went to God and said, hey, I need some help with this, I need direction, has he ever just walked away, or has he ever let you handle it on your own? Have you got on the other side of this thing and felt like he abandoned you? I doubt it. Our faith is like a muscle. We have to exercise it if we want it to grow. If in those moments we don't trust him, whether it's a big situation or a small, if we don't trust him in every situation, when we get through that and we get to the next one, you're not going to have what you need to trust him through that one as well. So what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on God? Are you going to focus on his promises? Or are you going to just focus on the challenge or the situation and shriek back and curl up and run? There is no challenge or situation that you may face that is too big for God to handle. And just like the the moment there with the children of Israel, we need to be careful who we're listening to. If we know that God is with us and the circumstance before us he will handle, don't let the people around you doubt in the situation in God keep you from following him. We have to trust God no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the situation, no matter how daunting it seems, no matter how big of a challenge it seems like. Sometimes we may feel like we are David standing before Goliath. But we have to see who we are in God to know that challenge isn't too big. That's actually all I have. So maybe you're watching this and you say, you know what? This all doesn't make sense to me because I don't have a relationship with God to begin with. Well, today could be that day. If you know that you need him, you know that you've done things wrong, you've sinned, and you know that you're not right with where you need to be with God. Today you could do that. Just say, Lord, I need you. I need you to come into my heart. I need you to come into my life. Wash me clean. I'm sorry for where I failed you. I give you my all, give you my life. And I want you to do what you want to do in me. There's no fancy thing that you have to do to give your life to God. It's just complete surrender and trust that he gave his son for you so that you could be one with him. If you've done that, reach out. Let us know. If you don't know where to find a church, reach out. Maybe we can find something in your area, or if you're close here, maybe you can join us. But let today be the day that you give your life to God and start new. And then chase after him so that when challenges come, you have him to fall back on.